Hello, my name's Alison Walker and I'd love you to join me with this session of hand reflexology. Hand reflexology is brilliant. It's just as effective as foot reflexology, and it's a standalone therapy, or you can use it in conjunction with your foot reflexology or ear reflexology. And the first thing I'm going to do now is to greet my client and check her hands. And I just want to see that there's nothing untoward on the hands that's going to prevent me from treating them. And they look absolutely fine. And normally then I would clean them, make sure they're clean, but we know that we've both washed our hands, so we're both absolutely fine, and we're going to make a start now. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the right hand, so I'm going to cover the left hand over and just keep that warm and make sure the client's comfortable. And I'm going to create what I call a hand sandwich, not a ham sandwich, but a hand sandwich. And this is just a lovely way of connecting to the client's energy and just getting them to relax their hand into yours and get them used to the feel and touch. Touch is so important. The power of a healing touch cannot be underestimated, and it's lovely just to sit and hold hands with somebody maybe that doesn't have a lot of physical contact in the course of their life. Okay, so once we've done that, I'm actually going to put a little amount of cream, just a small amount of cream or lotion, onto the hand and the arm. And I'm just going to do a very light massage to start with. Again, it's all about relaxing and soothing the client before we start the work. So nothing specific, just go with the flow. And then just stretch the thumb and the fingers. Just start opening up the joints. And once we've done that, I'm going to link hands and we're going to do a little bit of wrist flexion. Just a, ooh, what a creaks and cracks and groans here. Just helps with the mobility of the wrist. Our hands get a lot of wear and tear throughout the day, and we don't always give them the care and attention that they need. So now is an opportunity to really help and release any pressure, tenderness, tightness, any aches and pains in the wrist and the hand. Okay. And I'm just going to do little rotations on the thumb and the fingers. And as I'm doing this, I'm just supporting the knuckle at the base of each of the fingers I'm working on. That's lovely. And then I'm going to do something we call palmar press. Now I've got my holding hand on the dorsal aspect of the hand, and I'm making a fist that I'm actually going to put on the client's palm, and I'm going to push with the fist and rotate, push and rotate, using my hand on the dorsal in opposition. And this is quite nice just to iron out all the kinks in the palmar surface of the hand. And this is called the palmar press. And then I'm going to do a little technique called breaking chocolate. And first of all, I'm going to have my fingers on the dorsum, and I'm going to have my thumbs on the palmar surface, and I'm going to press in with my thumbs, and I'm going to pull back with my fingers, just to help all those bones open up. And I'm going to work to put just your elbow on there. Is that more comfortable? Yeah. And I'm just going to press in and pull back. Lovely. And I'm going to swap now, and I'm going to put my fingers underneath and have my thumbs on the top, and I'm going to press in, and you can see that, but I'm going to press in with my fingers and just slide over the top very gently. So I'm really opening up all the joints in the metacarpals. Okay, so that's 2 forms of breaking chocolate. Using our thumbs on the palmar and then using our fingers on the palmar surface. And now I'm just going to work on the meridians, just going to waken up the meridians for a moment, and I'm just going to tap around the hand just to get the energy flowing to the hand, just a little bit of tapping all over. And then I'm going to squeeze and press at the base of the nail of the thumb and the fingers with my thumb and index finger. And that just hits all the start and finish of the meridian points on the hand. You can tap here if you prefer, but it's quite nice just to have a little press. The meridian lines that run through the hand all go through the wrist, so it's very good to finish off with a little tap on the dorsal and plantar area of the wrist. And then we're going to start working on the dorsal aspect. I'm going to come down the tracks first with a little technique called the rock and roll technique. So I'm pressing against each of the bones of the metacarpals as I work my way down the hand towards the wrist. So you just go one way from the knuckles down to the wrist, pushing against each of the bones, and make sure you use your wrists. Have good wrist action here. So I've gone from lateral to medial and then medial back to lateral. I'm just going to walk down the webbing between the thumb and the index finger. This is a really good area for whiplash, for pain of any sort actually, even indigestion actually it's very good for. There's a little pain point here which is excellent for toothache or any headaches, any aches and pains you have, but it mustn't be used on somebody who's pregnant unless they're actually at the stage where they are okay to start going into labour, because it can actually help to relax the uterus and create contractions, and we don't want that too early. Okay, then I'm going to snowplow down the hand. So I'm walking with all my fingers in unison. This is what we call the snowplow. And when I get to the wrist at the bottom of the hand, at the base of the hand, I'm just going to press in and work around the wrist with all my fingers. This is called the wrist press. I'm now going to work on the palmar surface. I don't know if you want to move the little camera around so you can see the palmar surface. Is that okay? Just down there. That's lovely. So I'm just double thumb walking across the whole of the palmar surface, just wherever it feels comfortable. It's good if your client can just relax their hand too, that's lovely. You can get into the reflexes, because they're quite deep on the hands, so you need a bit of welly to get in there. Now I'm going to turn the hand over. I'm actually going to work into all of the reflexes. It can be a little bit more difficult to ascertain exactly where the reflexes are on the hand, because not only are they back to front, they're also upside down when you're working on them. But it's the same premise as with the feet, and this DVD, this little DVD, can be used in conjunction with the hand chart so that you can locate the reflexes yourself. So I'm going to actually start at the top of the hand and work down. So I'm just going to, there's 2 techniques here you can use. You can press and roll with your thumb, or you can use the side of your knuckle to get in. It depends really on the size of the hands that you're working on and how heavy the hand is. For this hand, I'm choosing to use my thumb with little thumb rotations. If I had a larger hand, I would probably use my knuckle, the side of my knuckle. Okay, so where I'm working now, I'm working at the base of each of the fingers, and that's a really good area to work for the lymphatics. And then we have the shoulder reflex here, which I'm going to show you another technique for that when I turn the hand over. We've got the diaphragm across here. So above the diaphragm, we have the chest, lung, breast area. Just thumb walking and circling around that area. And then below the diaphragm line here, we have the liver and gallbladder reflexes. If you feel anything, stay on it. So I'm just going to try my knuckle here, see if I can get in. Does that feel okay? Yeah. Now over towards the thumb, just before you get to the thenar prominence here, we've got the adrenal gland. I'm just going to work the adrenal gland. And just below that, we have the kidney reflex. Now this is the waistline guideline across here, a lot lower than it is on the foot. And we have all the intestines here. And then on the lateral side of the hand, we have the ileocecal valve. And then walking up the ileocecal, from the ileocecal valve up the ascending colon and across the transverse colon. Now over here we've got a little bit of the heart there on the right hand. Work that on the thenar prominence. Also work it just above the thumb. And work in there. And that brings us to the spine. The spine, we have the cervical starting at the base of the thumbnail, and then we come all the way down to the proximal joint of the phalanges, and then we have the thoracic vertebra from the base of the thumb, and then we have the lumbar vertebra, the sacrum and the coccyx, and that's the bladder reflex there. So to work the actual spine, I'm going to do another rock and roll technique with my thumb, which is a really effective one for getting in to the nerves of the vertebra. If you find anything, again, stay and work it out. How's that feeling? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do that 2 or 3 times up there, depending on the width of the hand. And then to come back down, you can rock and roll down again. But this time I'm using my thumb on the pad of the client's thumb for leverage. And I'm using my middle finger. And I'm rocking my wrist and rolling the finger down as I work down the spinal reflexes. I'm moving my holding hand down to support as I work down the spine. And again, you can do this 2 or 3 times depending on the width of the hand that you're working on. And then it's nice to finish off with a sweep around the spine with the side of your index finger knuckle. Make sure you're supporting the hand well while you sweep. I'm going to turn the hand over and I'm going to work the lateral edge of the hand, and I'm going to use that same rock and roll technique, making sure that I'm supporting well with the hand, the holding hand, and I'm using my thumb for leverage, and again I'm going to use this wrist action to rock and roll down the lateral edge of the hand. Now this picks up part of the shoulder, the arm, the elbow, and then we're coming down into the leg, knee and the hip area. It's also a very good area for helping with anybody who has got back or neck pain or shoulder pain, obviously. Now I'm just going to sweep around this area as well on the lateral spine. On the shoulder, I'm going to use my thumb on the top of the hand, the dorsum of the hand, and I'm just going to sweep underneath with the side of my index finger. It's really good for crunchy shoulders, this. And I'm going to just do a light knuckle on the dorsum, on that lateral side, to make sure that I am covering the knee reflexes and coming down around the wrist. Make sure I'm covering the hip and sciatic reflexes as well. A little bit of finger walking here, and then a little bit of knuckle sweep. And if you get both hands, you can actually sweep round the wrist here and sweep the pelvic area on both sides. If you just slide down from the wrist and you come to a little dip just as you come onto the hand, and on the medial side, that's the reflex for the uterus and prostate, and on the lateral side for the ovaries and testes. You can just hold those together and create an energy link. Okay, now I'm going to work the thumb, and I'm going to press in with my middle and ring fingers while I work the length of the thumb, making sure I get the middle finger right into the centre, which is really good for the pituitary and the hypothalamus. Once I've walked up the thumb, I'm going to use my index finger and my middle finger, and I'm going to just squeeze and press as I come from the base of the thumb to the tip of the thumb. Almost like little pliers coming down either side. And I'm also going to go across the top, the dorsal and the plantar aspect in the same way. Then I'm going to work each of the fingers individually in the same way. So pressing in to the palmar surface, making sure that I work the sinuses here really well. The eyes and ears on the first two fingers. Sorry, the eyes on the first two fingers, the ears on the last two fingers. And of course you're picking up teeth here too. A really good helper area for the head and the brain. And then I'm going to do my little plier technique, coming down from the base to the tip, and continue on to the next finger. If you're working on a larger hand, you might need to adjust your position to reach, or swap hands, which is absolutely fine. It's very free form working with hands, so you do what feels comfortable to you, for you and your client. Just going to swap hands here. I'm just going to finish the fingers by working down the dorsal aspect with my thumb, just a little bit of thumb walking here. You can use your fingers if you prefer. Just making sure that this whole area is covered well. And then we're going to work the tips of the thumb and the fingers to contact the brain. I'm doing little brain rolls like we do on the toes here. You can use your index finger or you can use your thumb. I'm going to press into the base of each of the fingers. Really good for the lymphatics here. We did the plantar aspect, I'm just doing the dorsum now. Now's a good point in the treatment to return to any reflexes that you found that felt out of balance. They were crunchy or they were a little bit tender. So it's a good time now just to return to those. And then to finish the treatment, what I'm going to do is do a massage. Get some more cream or lotion. And I'm actually going to massage up to the elbow. And you can finger walk or you can thumb walk or thumb roll. The extrinsic muscles of the forearm really help with the hand, and if people have carpal tunnel syndrome or any arthritic aches and pains, it really does help if you work the whole of the forearm and incorporate this into your hand reflexology session. Now you can do a session in a very short time. You can speed that up if you want to and just hone in on certain areas that you want to work on. So you can incorporate it into your foot reflexology session, or you can work every single reflex thoroughly and make it last a full hour and have it as a standalone treatment. You can link different reflexes on the hand to reflexes on the feet and the ears at the same time. And you can also show your client where to work on their hands for homework. Remember to work within the pain tolerance of the client. It should be a pleasurable experience. It needs to be firm, but it mustn't be painful. Just finish off with a few sweeps up towards the heart for circulation. And then I'm going to finish the session with another hand sandwich, which just indicates that I've finished with that hand now. So what I'm going to do is just cover that hand over now, just check the client's okay, and I'm going to keep contact with that hand while I move to the left hand and repeat the sequence. Okay, I'm going to do this a little bit quicker because I think we've covered most areas there. So just to give you an idea of what it's like on the left hand. So I've just put a little bit of cream on. I'm just going to do my hand sandwich, just connect to this hand, which actually is lovely and warm now. And then just carry on a little bit of light massage, a little bit of effleurage it's called. Just be careful of the tendons in the arms when you work up those. You're best to work against the bone and avoid the tendons as much as possible. So just stretch the fingers and thumb out. And then just do a little bit of wrist flexion. Oops, tiny little fingers on my big hands here. There we go, that's better. So just do a bit of flexion. Tiny little bit of rotation, but not much. You have to move the wrist to where it wants to go, where it naturally goes. Don't force it, and always support the wrist well. And then I'm going to do a little bit of rotation on the fingers and thumb, supporting the knuckles at the same time. Just swap to do the thumb. Just be very gentle with the thumb. It does move in a different way to the fingers. And then I'm going to do my palmar press. As you can see, a lovely fist going right into the palm, good support on the dorsal aspect, and it's just a lovely press in. These poor hands that do all this work and don't get any sort of attention. And then I'm going to do my breaking chocolate technique. So we're going to just make sure the client's elbow is supported. Press in with the thumbs on the palmar aspect. Just to open all those bones and the joints. Just let them all loosen nicely. And I'm going to swap, have my thumbs on the top, but it's the fingers on the palmar surface that are doing the work now. Just pressing in, pulling back. And then have a little tap all over the hand, the energy flowing to this area. Just a gentle tap, energising. I'm just going to pinch the meridians at the base of each of the nails with my thumb and index finger. And the same on the thumb. And then we do, next we do the dorsal aspect of the hand with the rock and roll technique, coming down each of the tracks between the fingers. Do this a couple of times. Make sure you walk down the webbing between the thumb and the index finger, this very important pain point. Again, a word of caution, not for those who are pregnant. I use my thumb here because it really gets into that groove there. And then we snow plough down the dorsal aspect of the hand. That's our thumbs on the palmar aspect for support and leverage, and our fingers in unison, like the marching army, snow ploughing down the top of the hand to the wrist. When you get to the wrist, press in, do a wrist press all the way around the base of the wrist. And then we move to the palmar surface again, and we do some double thumb walking on the palmar surface, just to cover all the reflexes. I'm going to turn the hand over, support the hand well, and I'm going to work each of the reflexes individually using the thumb rotation technique or side of the knuckles, whichever feels comfortable to you. If anybody does have arthritis, just be careful of the joints as well. Make sure that you're not hurting them in any way. But it can be marvellous for arthritis also any tendon problems, trigger fingers, anything like that that people are suffering from. Of course, on the left hand, you have the same area as the shoulder, and you have the chest, lung, breast area here, the lymphatics at the base of the fingers. And just below the diaphragm, you have the stomach. And don't forget the heart. Got the heart on the medial side of the hand, just above the thumb, and also make sure you work just below the thumb as well for the heart. So that brings us back to the stomach reflex. And you also have the pancreas. And the spleen reflex. Above the waistline guideline, below the diaphragm line. And then back to the base of the thumb, just over the edge of the thenar prominence, at the base of the thumb, you have the adrenal gland. And a little bit lower down, you have the kidney, just above and below the waistline guideline. And you can actually follow the ureter tube down to the bladder, right in the centre of the palmar surface near the wrist. And then you have the intestines. Just work over the intestines. And then you have the transverse colon coming across, the descending colon going down, the hand on the lateral side, to the sigmoid flexure, just working the sigmoid flexure, and rectum, anus. When you feel that you've covered that hand well, then we're going to work the spine. I'm going to do our rock and roll technique, coming up the spine, starting at the sacrum, the coccyx sacrum area, and working our way up. Is that okay? Not too hard? Can't quite get the angle there. If you have a reclining chair or a couch, you can obviously do your client's hands with them reclining and then just swap sides. For demonstration purposes and ease of showing you, I thought it was easier to actually do it with a little table in between. Right, so you can come up the spine a couple of times with that lovely rock and roll technique. Move your chair if you need to and get into the right position. And then when you come back down, we're going to support the hand well and the thumb, and we're going to use our finger rolling rock and roll technique coming down the spine. Do tiny little bites, covering the bones and the nerves, and obviously the muscles as well, for that area. And again, depending on the width of the hand, do that 2 or 3 times. I'm going to finish off the spine by sweeping round with the inside edge of my index finger knuckle. I'm going to do the lateral edge of the hand, and for this technique I'm going to use the rock and roll with the finger, middle finger coming down that lateral edge 2 or 3 times to cover all the reflexes. to put my thumb on the dorsal aspect and I'm going to sweep underneath all around that shoulder reflex. It's a really good technique, this, for getting all the kinks out of the shoulder. Feels very crunchy there. And I'm going to carry on and use the edge of that index finger knuckle just to work the knee reflex, and then come down hip sciatic reflex. And then use both hands to sweep round the pelvic area. Slide your fingers into the dips on either side, which pick up the ovary testes reflex on the lateral and the uterus prostate reflex on the medial aspects of the hand. And we're going to move on to the fingers. I'm going to start with the little finger this time. We're just going to do our press with our middle finger and ring finger. Press into the fleshy part of the palmar surface of the finger. And we do a little plier technique to the sides and the top and bottom of each finger. A really good way of getting into the sinuses here. And swap hands so I can reach each finger individually. I'm going to work the thumb, and remember, right in that fleshy part you've got pituitary hypothalamus, so really have a good press in there. Marvellous for hot flushes. And then work both edges and the top and bottom of the thumb. I'm going to finish off by thumb walking, although you can use your finger if you want to, just down the dorsal aspect of the fingers. And you can do the thumb as well. Just pick up the face, the throat, the glands. Actually, it's a good idea at the base of the thumb, which I didn't mention, which I should have mentioned, is remember the thyroid and neck muscles. So remember, just at the base of the thumb, you've got the thyroid, parathyroids, throat, and if you come around the side of the thumb, really good for all the neck muscles. So do make sure you do that on both hands, especially if somebody's got a neck shoulder problem. Okay, then we're going to do our little brain rolls, the tips of the thumb and the fingers. It's good for concentration, good for stimulating the brain. I'm going to press into the base of each of the fingers for the lymphatics. So make sure you do that on the dorsal and the palmar surfaces. And again, return to any reflexes that you felt were out of balance or they need a little bit more work. And then a little bit more lotion or cream and work up to the elbow. It's a nice massage again. It's good to use your fingers to walk up. And your thumbs, just roll your thumbs up against the bone between the tendons. towards the heart. You can really go to town on the massage and take as long as you like, and just really enjoy the experience as much as your client will be. And when you're finished, go back to your hand sandwich, just signifying the end of the treatment with that hand. And then it's rather nice to actually get both hands together, just join the one in that you've already worked on, and just place your palm on the dorsal of the hand of the client. If it's appropriate, you could ask them to take a few nice deep breaths in and out, depending on whether they're lying on the couch. And just take a few minutes, and then just slide your hands off, cover your client's hands over with a towel, and go and wash your hands and get them a drink of water. And that's the end. Thank you.
Thank you.